going to ask you a question, and I want you to say, living the dream. How are you doing? How are you doing? You've heard people say that, right? You know, they're like, yeah, I'm living the dream, you know. And when they're saying that, it's just they're living what's right, you know, what they feel comfortable. The question is, are you living the life of your dreams? One person said this: if you want to live the life of your dreams, you must stop running. You must stop running from your purpose. You were created to live a life of meaning and purpose. The only way to be at peace with yourself is to live the life you were created to live. We all understand that we have a purpose. We're not on earth we're not on this planet just to walk on this planet. There's a purpose behind our walk. There's a dream. There's something that we must fulfill. But in the next few minutes, I want to share with you, and I want to use as a subject, don't let the nightmare steal your dream. Tell your neighbor, don't let the nightmare steal your dream. 1984, there was a movie that came out. Wes Craven was the director. He called it A Nightmare on Elm Street. This young girl did not want to go to sleep because somebody from a boiler room named Freddy Krueger, who was all disfigured, would come out in her dreams and would try to kill her within her dreams. Now, Wes Craven's developed this movie it was inspired by several newspaper articles from the Los Angeles Times in the 1970s. And it was about refugees who were fleeing to the United States because of war in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. They suffered disturbing nightmares and refused to sleep. Some men had died in their sleep. And medical authorities called this phenomenon Asian death syndrome. One soldier from Vietnam said that when he came back from Vietnam, he said that he went back to school, he got a job, got married, began a family with 2 wonderful kids. He said, I was living the dream. But as time went by, as he started to age, he started to suffer from what we know as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, where he started to have these nightmares, flashbacks. He tried to commit suicide 3 times. One day he was on his kitchen floor sitting, mad, scared. And he said, I need help. I can't get away from this nightmare. His wife took him to get some help. And he was in a process of dealing with this nightmare. And finally, when he came out of it and came to the other side, he said these words. He says, my life and my family's lives have changed. I believe I came through all this nightmare, all this hell, for a reason, and that is to help other veterans who suffer. The definition of nightmare, when I was looking this up, is this: an evil spirit formerly thought to oppress people during sleep. Now, the word nightmare is a compound word. We understand, the word night in nightmare makes sense. But the word mare doesn't make too much sense because actually it refers to a female horse. But back in the 14th centuries, the word mare became sense and they added it together. And mare was addressed as, they call it as an evil spirit that was once thought to produce feelings of suffocation in people while they slept. And by the 16th century, they already had said that it was feelings of distress caused by this spirit. A dream is something that, it's based on thoughts, images, and emotions. A dream also is a vision. A dream is also purpose, something I'm called to accomplish. Look at someone and say, God has called you to accomplish your dream. Can you believe that today? In Genesis 12, verses 1 through 5, it says, the Lord had said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's house to the land I will show you. Now comes the dream. God starts to show Abram the dream. He says, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So now, that's the dream. Verse 4 says, so Abram went. So in other words, once he receives this word from God, this vision, this dream, this is what I'm going to do with you, this is your purpose, now he moves to go into that dream. And the Lord told him, he said he went as the Lord told him, and he took Lot with him. And Abraham, 75 years of age, set out to Haran. Verse 5 says, the last part says, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. The goal, the dream was Canaan. And it says right there in that verse, verse 5, that they made it. But there's a comma between that they set out to Canaan and they arrived. There's a comma between when they left and when they arrived. Because that comma is the nightmare. That comma is the process to get to the dream. Because in Genesis, 2 chapters later, look what it says in Genesis 15, 13, and 14. And God said to Abram, know for sure that your descendants will be strangers. And the Amplified says, living temporarily in the land, Egypt, that is not theirs, where they will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. That's the comma. But on that nation whom the descendants will serve, I will bring judgment, and afterward they will come out with great possession. God told Israel, I'm going to give you a promise. And the promise is that you're going to have a lot of adversity. To experience the dream, you must endure the nightmare. Joseph, in chapter 37, verses 5 through 11, Joseph had a dream. And when he told his brothers, they hated him. Isn't it amazing that when you start to share your vision, your dream, there is always someone that's not going to like it? And he went on to continue. You could read it by yourself. You read it before. He went to tell them, and they were like, what? We're going to bow down to you? And he told them the dream in a different way because he had another one. And they hated him even more. They said they hated, the verse says, hated him all the more because of his dream. There are people that are going to hate you because of your dream. They were jealous. Vision, dream. One writer said these words, is the key to life. Because where there is dreams, there is hope. And where there is hope, there is faith. And faith is the substance or fulfillment of what you are hoping for. Listen, church. When you begin to act on your dream, it will stir up both those that will help you and those that will try to hinder you. I'm going to repeat that. When you start to act upon your dream, it's going to wake up both those that will help you and those that will come against you. And this happens in a literal sense because the same way that it wakes up those that help us and those that come against us, it wakes up something internal also. It wakes up, what does it wake up? It wakes up the gifts. It wakes up talents. It wakes up the abilities. That's part of the dream. Those are the dream helpers. But it also wakes up fears, insecurities, past failures, etc. That's the nightmare. And the question is, who am I going to walk with? I have to determine and decide, am I going to follow the dream and endure the nightmare so I can experience the dream? I can't get away from the fears. I can't get away from the insecurities. I can't get away from those things that come against me I can't get away. That's part of me. But I have to deal with the nightmare. I have to deal with Freddy Krueger. But I will defeat the enemy in the name of Jesus, because my goal is Canaan, and I will get to Canaan. Opposition often proves that we are doing something significant with our lives. When you step outside of what others expect you to be, listen to this. Sometimes people expect this is what you're going to be. When you step outside of what others expect you to be, they begin to see you as a problem. When you step outside of what others expect you to be, they begin to see you as a problem. However, people who change the world, how many world changers we have here? People who change the world have declared independence from others' expectations. And that's what makes us successful. Listen, when I count to 3, I want you to just shout at me where you were born, the town or the city. 1, 2, 3. Okay, what good thing can come out of that town? What good thing can come out of that city? Because in John 1:46, when they told about Jesus of Nazareth, they were talking to Nathanael. Nathanael said, "What good thing can come out of Nazareth?" What good thing? Because Nazareth, listen, was set in a small basin, surrounded by hills. What's a basin? A basin is an extension of a piece of land that discharges water to rivers, lakes, and the sea. So the potential that's in Nazareth can go to a river, that's one size, to a lake, a greater size, to the sea, even greater. What good thing can come out of the town you were born in? You. And within you, there is living waters that can be discharged, not just to a river, not just to a lake, but to a sea, to greater things. Jesus said, you will do great things, but yet you will do even greater things. And even in Nazareth, it's also associated, when Jesus preached in the synagogue, his fellow townsmen rejected him. Because when you are working and walking in your dream and walking in your vision, you're going to get rejected. Jesus was already in adversity at a young age. And it was because the Father could trust him with the adversity. All right. Let me ask you this question. Can God trust you with adversity? Can he trust you with trouble? Matthew 14, verses 13 through 21 talk about the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus feeds the 5,000. We understand it was probably about 20,000. He feeds the multitude. From verses 13 through 21. Now, verse 22, he sends the disciples. Listen to this. He sends the disciples into a storm. And he goes to pray. Jesus fed the multitude and sends into the storm the disciples. Why did God send the ones who who disciplined themselves to follow him into a storm? It was because the multitude was not prepared for the storm. Jesus can trust adversity in the disciples. Why? Because they were with him. They were being taught by him. They were seeing how he operated. And now, this was part of the dream. He sends them into this nightmare. But in the middle of the nightmare, they even said, wait a minute, there's a ghost. And it wasn't a ghost. It was Jesus. Jesus will be in the middle of our nightmare. Why? Because he knows that he wants you to fulfill your dream. You may be in trouble, but your trouble is a pathway to triumph. Your pain is a pathway to praise. Your mess is a pathway to the miraculous. Don't let the nightmare steal your dream. Our dream is a journey. And journeys involve movement, action, stops, starts, detours, delays, trips into the unknown. God called Abram to leave his past life at the age of 75 and to embark on a journey. God called Moses from the burning bush to begin a new phase of his journey at the age of 80. God called the Israelites to leave Egypt and embark on a 40-year journey for personal transformation in the desert. God called David to leave the comforts of his job as a shepherd to conquer Goliath and to serve as king in Israel. God called Jeremiah to 40 to 50 years of difficult work, nightmares, standing firm on God's values in the midst of a rebellious people. God called the 12 disciples to a journey that would change their lives forever. He calls us to this. I wish I could tell you that you will not have nightmares. But some of you might be living a nightmare right now. Let me ask you this. Has what you have gone through assisted or helped anyone? I think my brother just was a great testimony right here. He said, I got help from someone that went through something. Pastor Danny and Pastor Elizabeth, their journey has helped all of us and many others. Their nightmares have helped all of us. The dream is twofold: to give us a sense of destiny and to inspire us to reach it. The truth is this: the nightmare could last for a while. God chooses the length and level of intensity of our nightmare because he has a unique purpose for each one of us. God wants to what? What he wants to do? He wants to clean out our inner being and infuse us with himself for his greater and long-term purpose. God's dream is in you. And the nightmare is threefold. It's for God discovery, self-discovery, and to shut hell's mouth up. In the nightmare, we will find God. The disciples found Jesus in the middle of a nightmare, in the middle of a storm. They found Jesus walking on the water. No matter how the nightmare may be, there's one that can walk in the midst of the nightmare, and the nightmare can't touch him. And that's the one that's going to pull you out. That's the one that's going to call you from the boat and say, come on, come on. Peter started walking, but he sunk. The nightmare took him down. But the one who invited him pulled him out because there's a dream that must be fulfilled. And he wasn't going to allow the nightmare to steal Peter's dream. We find God in the middle of our nightmare. And here's one: self-discovery. This is the one that takes a while. Because we understand that the enemy, Satan, is not our worst enemy. We are our worst enemy. I have to deal with the insecurities that have waken up because of this dream. I have to deal with my fears. Peter Scarsero, in his book, Emotionally Healthy Spiritually, he said this. He said, at some point in our journey, we will confront the wall, where the ancients called it the dark night of the soul. Most of us, the wall appears through a crisis that turns our world upside down. It comes perhaps through a divorce, loss of a job, death of a close friend or family member, a cancer diagnosis, a bad church experience, a betrayal, shattered dreams, a car accident, inability to get pregnant, deep desire to marry, dryness or loss of joy in our relationship with God. That's the nightmare. And many of us have gone through one or several nightmares in our lives. Listen, Job didn't suffer so that his life would be ruined. It was to shut hell's mouth up when he came out of the nightmare. A nightmare is like a dream. It comes with sensations, but sensations of hopelessness and despair. Come on, you've had that nightmare where, someone is chasing you. When someone is chasing me, why is it that I always feel like I can't run fast? I'm sluggish. Or you're falling and you're like, and you end up falling from your bed. Or you're like me, one time I had this animal like trying to grab and bite my leg, and I started kicking it, and I ended up kicking my wife. So she kicked me back. But they're real. Don't let the nightmare steal your dream. The nightmare may be powerful, but the dream is your destiny. Oh boy. Help me, Lord. Genesis 28. Jacob gets to a place and he grabs a stone and he lays his head on the stone and he has a dream. He sees the angels ascending and descending on this ladder and the Lord at the top. And he tells them, I am the Lord, your God, your father Abraham, and the God, your father Abraham, the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants a land on which you are lying. He said, I'm going to give it to you. And he starts telling him, this is what I'm going to do. This is the dream. Jacob had a dream because his head was on the rock. Okay? That stone was his pillow. And that pillow became his pillar. The question is, what are we lying our heads on? The Apostle John laid his head on Jesus, on his chest. He would lay his head on his chest. And by doing that, he developed a relationship to the point where he received the revelation of 22 chapters. I had a dream one time. I saw myself praying for the sick, and I seen all these sick people healed. It was amazing. And the Lord, when I woke up, the Lord kept reminding me, and this is what I'm going to do, and da-da-da-da-da. And not too long right after that dream, my parents got divorced. The music ministry we were in was destroyed. I ended up in the hospital with a lung disease. I'm like, this was not part of the dream. No, I started to live the nightmare because we can't escape the nightmare. But if I can endure the nightmare, I will experience the dream. And I went through surgery. This was 3 years, 1 year right after another. 7 tubes in my body. They had to bring a specialist to just staple my lungs to my ribs. You've heard this before. But one part I didn't tell you is that after all that was done, I started to walk in that dream, and I started to preach. And one day I had to go to Dominican Republic, and I got the pain again. And I knew the pain. I said, uh-oh, my lungs collapsed again. But I had a trip. I had something to fulfill. And I said, nope, I'm going on the plane. And I was in pain like this. and I'm walking, I'm giving the ticket. I walked in the plane like this. I'm in pain. I got on the airplane. I sat there. The airplane took off. I'm in pain. And it wasn't until the plane touched the land of Dominican Republic, whatever was holding me just let me go. And never had that pain ever since again. The nightmare will creep up, church. And you're going to get much advice, many advices from people and opinions. But don't let that opinion become your reality. If God has given you the power to kill your Goliath, don't let Saul convince you that you cannot overcome him. Nightmares just pop up. One nightmare popped up for all of us, COVID-19. And running a healing and miracle ministry, I started to go through some challenges. Is God still healing? I'm praying and I'm not seeing nothing. I was living my own personal nightmare with this giant called COVID-19. How am I going to pray for the sick now when this one loved one had passed away and so many have gone? But I had to keep believing that what God spoke to me was going to come to pass. And you have to keep believing what God spoke to you will come to pass. The dream will come to pass. We just got to go through this nightmare. And I have to tell you, the last 3 months, I've been seeing healings like never before. Your pastor's a witness to it. Just 2 weeks ago, we were seeing healing after healing after healing after healing. Last Sunday, just a week ago, last Sunday I was in Honduras, and I was just healings after healings after healings. And there's this God just telling me, hey, the dream is still there. The nightmare's surrounding you, but I'm in the middle of your nightmare, and I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. Let me finish here. Genesis 21, verse 14. Early the next morning, Abraham took some food. And this is where Abraham, tells Hagar that she needs to leave. So he sends her away with her son, their son actually. And it says, she went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down about a bow shot away, for she thought, I cannot watch the bush. So she puts him in a bush. I can't see my son die. I can't see him die. So she goes away. Now look what happens. This is Genesis 21. In verse 17, God heard the boy crying. Listen, she was crying, but God heard the boy crying. And the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. Hagar dropped Ishmael. Ishmael is her dream. She dropped him to die. And God didn't hear her voice. God heard the voice of the dream. If your dream is from God, listen, church, God will hear its voice when you have given up on the dream. In verse 18 it says, arise, pick up your Ishmael, pick up your dream and hold it. And in verse 19, he opens her eyes so that she can see water. What was dry, now God supplied some water for her to give back to her dream so that what? So they can continue. Why? Because the dream was he was going to make them a great nation. Don't drop your dream. Especially if it's from God. God will get our attention because the dream has a voice. The Father turned his back one day on the dream, Jesus. And the dream cried out, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My Father, why hast thou forsaken me? The dream, God had a dream. The dream was the church. And after Jesus went through the nightmare, after God the Father saw what Jesus went through the nightmare, he resurrected and ascended. And 50 days later, the Holy Spirit filled the 120, and the dream was birthed, which was the church. That was God's dream. I don't know what nightmare you may be going through, but I have come to tell you, it's not over yet. God is going to move in the midst of that nightmare and show you. You may not, some of you probably are blind right now because of your own personal nightmare. You can't see the dream anymore. Well, I'm here to tell you, God is in the midst of that nightmare. He's going to open your eyes like he opened Hagar's eyes, so that you can pick up the dream, pick it up, and say, I'm here. I'm going to fulfill this dream, and I'm not going to allow the nightmare to steal my dream.